It's time for Transport Line, the program that showcases the contributions of all modes of transportation to the socio-economic growth and development of our country, Africa, and the rest of the world. Transport Line is being beamed to you from the Center of Excellence, the state of aquatic splendor, and Africa's second largest economy, Lagos. I am Shina Ilegbede. Today, we are going to conclude our series on President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's to the transportation sector. Now, recall that we've had production as regards the deep blue economy, that is looking at the marine and blue economy. The sky blue economy, that is looking at the aviation and aerospace development, and of course, road transportation. So, to seal this series, we are going to take a look at what we call Okodogo, that is the rail mode of transportation. If you are conversant with the rail mode of transportation in Nigeria, you understand why you say Okodogo. Okodogo in those days, they bring a lot of foodstuff into Lagos, and that really assisted in making sure that every average Nigerian oligosians then could purchase food to the benefit of his or her families. Well, I have in the studio a railway consultant who is going to more or less throw searchlight on how far President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has gone on this particular mode of transportation in the past 2 years, or rather in the first 2 years of his administration, and the challenges ahead. Paul Ndibe is my guest. Paul, you are welcome to the program.
Thank you.
Paul, road mode of transportation, freight, goods and services, the cheapest means to move people, services and goods.
Correct.
The journey so far, last 2 years, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu.
Yeah, well, thank you. Generally, it won't be easy to make an assessment of one's impact on a big sector like transportation, and in particular on the railways, looking at the current development stage of our railway system. However, there are clear indications of the direction the government is going, and they are just clear. First of all, if you look at the standard gauge, the Kano-Maradi line that the previous administration started is still being sustained, and they have gone far more than expected in terms of deliverables. If you look at even the current standard gauge that stopped at Ibadan, Apapa to Ibadan, there is ongoing arrangement to continue extending the line beyond Osogbo, Ilori, Mokwa, Offa, Mokwa and beyond. So these are major developments. And then one critical point that the current administration had focused on was on trying to widen the base for the unbundling of the railway development in Nigeria, with the removal of rail development from the
Exclusive
to concurrent list had actually opened up a few investment opportunities, particularly from the private sector. So by that singular effort, the current administration has actually opened up that currently we can say that the Chinese has obtained a track access license for them to commence even train operations in their name. And the other companies, Bueno Logistics has also seeking such approval alongside others. And these interventions will not come without investments. So these investments will add to what the current administration is doing, and then you see a one-term growth in the railway sector. There are also indications, generally helping the states who want to venture into rail development to actually partner with the Nigeria Railway Corporation, and then incrementally improve on their railway development outlook. But one particular thing stands out. the recent government proclamation for CNG, conversion of, or rather introduction of the energy source, CNG
To drive the
correct. No, generally,
Okay.
you know, automobiles,
okay.
trucks, and currently on the NRC. Currently is being, well, championed, so to say, by the managing director of Nigeria Railway Corporation.
Omri Okwefa.
Yes. But before this, Railway had, you know, commenced, you know, retrofilling the conversion of their diesel electric to CNG and having the dual energy sources. But currently there is a campaign to vigorously pursue that. And when that is done, it will certainly drive down the cost of transportation, particularly on the railway sector. Having in mind that you won't be able to recover your cost on the railways except to exceed between 250 and 300 kilometers. Having that in view, and then with the introduction of a CNG energy source will actually make rail transportation fairly comparable with the road. Because currently a lot of new trucks that are on the road in cargo deliveries are actually on the CNG. And that had driven down the cost of transportation on the freight side. But if you look at what the railway could carry at a time, and doing that on a CNG energy source will actually give the leverage on the NRC. And the government is vigorously pursuing that. And that would be a new change in the entire environment of, you know, railway services in Nigeria.
Paul, one is very, very worried, going back to history, that you recall that what really killed, quote unquote, the Nigerian railways then was because of road haulage system. Majorly food, PMS, and what have you, were being driven by the Nigerian railways in terms of faring. But today, yes, we heard that the Nigerian railways, as discussed with the MPA, ditto the custom, so that from Tinkan, Apapa ports, we can move goods up country. Ditto, you look at Warri ports and what have you, on a port too. In those days, before the early business people killed the Nigerian railways, now we are trying to use the CNG-driven diesel engines, rather, so that we forget more about diesel. But will this government have the political will to carry this through?
Well, of course, I have a few comments on that. But however, in my last comments, I had intended to include, well, sustaining the services on Abuja-Kaduna line that is still ongoing, and the Warri-Itape line. They're all on the standard gauge. Now, on your recent issue, whether government will be able to sustain this, yes. It's like a vision. And you won't be able to implement anything except you have the vision and, of course, the political will. If we have to go through memory lane, there was also the policy on sugar, policy on cement, and that had given us lots and lots of that. If you can recall, many years ago, about 20 years ago, when we were on ICT evolution, there was a policy on ICT. Of course, as at that time, majority of the investment that propelled what we are seeing today on ICT sector came from the private sector. There was also the issue of automotive industry. There was a plan for Nigerian automotive development, industry, and there was a plan. Now, the issue of CNG had come up. So the expectation of government should also draw up a plan, have a policy for that, have a gradations of intervention from the private sector, have profile the countries or the technology that should be suitable for our environment, and have a fair arrangement on the pricing. Then you can open it up to the private sector so they can begin to build, various grades of accessories for this internally, so that we begin to, of course, acquire the scale, develop the manpower, and have the investment to enable us to do this conversion, so that on a very long time basis, Nigeria will be able to have the capacity to do that on their own. So government has done the proclamation, and of course we have the CNG and the LNG in Nigeria, so that wouldn't be a problem. It's just the technological know-how that government needs to streamline and then do it, craft it in such a way that there will be wholesome involvement, particularly from the private sector, because that would be the sector that would drive up this new energy source. So government, yes, stepping out to make the proclamation is one step. Having a policy should be the second step. The third step will be implementation, and it has to design attractive areas that will get the private sector to be interested in investing in this. You know, this can be done also looking at the sector. Well, there might be the set for pleasure cars for the private car owners, for the commercial sector, for the trucks, and then on the railways. And then, even if for those who are going to invest in this, you can give, instead of, there's also a funding for it. But that funding can be brought in such a way that those who are participating can have tax credits, because the tax credit should be denominated on your turnover. So the Federal Inland Revenue Service can be involved in determining that. So for all companies, while they operate, have higher income yield, they pay their taxes, and then on their final accounts, they may be given tax holidays in order for them to recover the cost, as opposed to giving the 100% of the credit they may require for this conversion. In that case, they increase their volume of operations, have more earnings, and then save the tax that they would have paid and reinject that in the CNG. Okay. So it's a wholesome thing that government will need to actually sit down and articulate in terms of a policy. To the best of my knowledge, I don't think there is a policy yet. So if there is a policy and then it is crafted along this direction, it will be all involving, and the private sector will be all out to make some investments in that.
Paul, thank you very much. We listened to your appraiser in the last 2 years, so to say. While we are looking at the private sector coming in, investing in the railways, you will recall that I said safety is very paramount. And when you're talking about safety, I am not a railway engineer, but I look at the level crossing at Fagba, Agege, near the Abattoir. The condition of that rail track, even the average layman will see that it's not right mechanically. It's either, God forbid, a vehicle gets stuck one day while the train is still approaching, or there will be a derailment, because the sidelines, the levels are giving way and nothing is being done. And not only that, as of today, we're talking about investment in railways. Signals has been done through the manual mode. What is happening, Paul?
Well, I have the impression that your observation will be, or rather is, on the narrow gauge, not on the standard gauge.
Yes. All I know is that I know the standard gauge, I know the narrow gauge. That track
is on the narrow gauge.
Paul, they tried to, let me say, rehabilitate. They brought some interlock to do the thing, but it has not done a good job. They should not wait. Recently, we know about Mapua Bridge.
Yeah.
And the problem with us in Nigeria is that experts will give advice, even layman will cry foul. They won't act until there is disaster. And that is not right. That is why in major roads you have controller of folks and what have you. Small pothole till the thing becomes a gully. Nothing will be done. But you can't joke with the railways. Not only that, all along the side track, they should clear the what do you call it? The surrounding axis, embankment. It's not right. They've built shanties and what have you. We pray we don't have a agreement and what have you. I'm not trying to belittle India or Pakistan. They should do something.
Yeah, thank you. Well, of course, the authorities, well, we hear this and will take necessary action.
I pray they do.
Yeah, I trust they will. However, looking at the degradation of the rail track, one can easily associate that to encroachments on the track. Because generally, look at how thickly populated the Fagba area of Agege that you mentioned. If the railway can take an extra measure to actually have protective gauze, wire mesh, all that on the rail.
They removed it. They put. That won't do it.
No, what I'm saying is one way to do that, not just installing them, but monitoring them.
Even they have the area office of, is it not Ifakoja, what have you? They've converted to the security outfit for the people that will monitor.
Yeah.
Typical Nigerians, who monitors the people? Nobody. So they've turned it into a means of extorting money from the people. And every time, right from that axis till further down to after Iju, what do you call that?
Iju, Agbado.
Agbado, thank you, to Agbado, you find illegal structures, which is not right.
Yes, I agree. If you
and
look at
security risk.
Yes, I share these sentiments. And if you look at the narrow gauge route and the standard gauge route, they are basically not the same, because while laying the track bed for the standard gauge, they had to take into consideration extra measures to actually protect the track. And because of the way the track is standard gauge, so the speed is higher, and there's more of protection of the track than the narrow gauge. 1898, when they started the railway track in Nigeria, is a long way ago. And consistent monitoring and flushing out
and maintenance.
I agree. And then not just that, the level crossing should be gated and have
It's not.
level crossing keepers to man such gates in order to, one, allow the free passage of the train and hold on the road traffic so that there will not be collision at the level crossing. And of course, removal of shanties and encroachments on the track. The third is also having check rails on the level crossing track. If they are installed and they are in place and they are firm, of course, there won't be derailment at the level crossings. And then, opening up of the culverts and the drains will also assist. And then, of course, not forgetting to debush the track and rebalance the track. This will make the track to be elastic enough. And when it's elastic, there will be no waste slip. The trains will do more speed. And then, of course, you have a smoother ride on the track. I agree, yes. And of course, they are listening to this, and they should
Paul,
be able
because
to take
one is concerned
action.
as a citizen of this country, you never know who's going to be affected. And people, they cook on the rail track from Fagba level crossing to near the Agege Abattoir, further down to Agege. And this is 21st century Lagos State, Nigeria. The Lagos State Police Command, the Nigerian Railways Police Command, and of course, the task force of Lagos State, they should do something.
I think the critical thing, we mentioned the state of the track, which in some locations is the situation or the condition of the track is deplorable in some locations, particularly on the narrow gauge, yes. But of course, the high density of population on the workers' train can be ameliorated by, one, having earlier starting time for the trains, and then having repeated, trips. And that can spread out the population than having them concentrated between 6:30 and 8 o'clock. If you have the earlier train, maybe 5:30, if it's clear enough and there is security enough for them, their train can go, take as many as they could take. Then the second one could come. So you spread, instead of having just 2 trains within this time frame, You can shorten them and see if you can have 3 trains within this period. That will help to spread out the population. And of course, it shouldn't be the last train around 5:36. People can still travel by 8 o'clock. You spread out the frequency of the train so that the population can spread out along the openings you have. Thank God there is also the red line, and of course the one that goes to Ibadan.
Okay, the standard gauge.
The standard gauge that goes to Ibadan. For you can start, instead of starting by 7:45 on weekends, you can start by up to, why not 6:30, and start the one from Ibadan by 6:30. So those who from Ibadan will want to travel with the train and report to the office will be here by 8:30, and then they wouldn't be too late to get to the office. Starting by 7:45 or 10 minutes to 8, Fridays and Saturdays at 8 o'clock. Not many people will want to take the train if they are coming to Lagos and they are going to get to the offices. So they can look at the timetable for these trains and reshape it so that you can also have more people, patronizing that service. And if that, is on, it will reduce the volume of passengers on the other sector.
Will the CNG-driven engines being proposed assist in increasing speed of the train?
Stability, environmental advantage it will convey, and of course cost. It will drive down the ticket fares on those services, and that would even inject more use. The NRC currently is trying to create more avenues for accessibility of the facility. So with the CNG, costs of the service will drop, so more people can take the train. But of course, if they don't increase the length of the train, number of coaches, there will still be increased congestion because more people will now take the train. However, you shouldn't forget that the advantage that route offers is in terms of transit time. The time you will leave maybe Ebute Metta and get to Agbado will be shorter than maybe 20% of the time you spend on the road. So the critical selling point on that service is time, transit time, and that's why you have this huge congestion. So if they can spread out the schedule of the train, that will help to reduce the level of congestion, particularly at peak period.
Paul Ndibe, I want to thank you for finding time to come on Transport Line. A railway mode of transportation consultant. We keep on enjoying your analysis whenever we bring you on Transport Line. We appreciate you all the time.
Thank you.
Well, that about wraps up our discussion on President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's Act 2 Transportation Scorecard. Before we draw the curtain, first, we wish our governor, Babajide Olusola Sanwo-Olu, many happy returns of the day on the 60th birthday. More healthy and rewarding years ahead. Times are still hard. That means be compassionate. Continue to be your brother's keeper. Don't do things that will add to the agony of your fellow human being, be it psychological, social, or economical. But if we empathize and we try to more or less douse the tension in society, things will be better for all of us. Compassion is the key word. Till next time, bye-bye for now.